Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of M365 Voice. I'm Antonio Mayo.
I'm Sarah Halsey.
And I am Mike Madarani.
And today we're coming to you with an episode where we want to talk about Microsoft Loop and Microsoft Loop workspaces.
I dubbed this episode Let's Loop.
Let's loop.
Let's loop it.
We try. So we've talked about Loop before on the podcast. And if my memory serves, we kind of introduced what Microsoft Loop is. I think we did kind of a 100 level survey tour of how you could use it. And I think we did a little introductory demo, but maybe we ought to loop back and talk about what Microsoft Loop is. I'm going to do this all day. Talk about what Microsoft Loop is, and then we're going to go into a bit more depth, right?
Yes.
Yes, it has been a while. A lot of things have been changed and added into the Loop space. So yeah, I think first time we talked about it was Loop available only in private chats. Things have changed since then.
Yeah, and I think they've added some more Loop components as well.
Correct.
Right. So if we were going to try and define what Microsoft Loop is, we might come up with 3 different definitions, but I like to think of it. It's basically small little components that you can create, share with others to allow people to co-author. And it's at less than a file level, it's at these little component levels. So whether you're working in an email, in Outlook, whether you're working in Microsoft Teams, or in many locations within the M365 stack, you can create a little component, which is basically maybe a smart widget, if you will, of all different types. And we're going to show some of the different types, right, Mike? But it's a component that you can create, you can put content into, and then you can make it available. So for example, all 3 of us can edit it and see the updates real time with each other in the frame of where we're working in Microsoft 365. How did I do?
Oh, you did great, actually.
I think of them as reusable components. I like the word reusable in there because you can have the component in an email, you can have it in a Teams chat, you can have it elsewhere, and all 3 of us can be collaborating in all those spaces and see it. Like you said, we can see it updating in real time as we add content or added content to them.
Exactly. It's the idea of co-authoring like we have in the Office apps. So it's a co-authoring component that is originally built on the Fluid framework that will allow you to go and reuse those components and those widgets and be able to insert them in different places or reuse them in multiple different places.
So when Mike and I presented about Microsoft Loop before at conferences and things, my favorite example of Loop is very specific to Mike. And he's smiling because I hope he remembers what the example is. We call it the coffee and donut order for when Mike goes out to get all of the other speakers coffee and donuts this morning. He can create a Loop component. He can put it in a Teams chat. Antonio, you and I and 27 of our closest friends can put in our donut and coffee orders. We can edit each other's orders. Mike can see it while he's standing in line to get us our coffee and donuts real time.
Nice.
Exactly. And you can see the list grows and grows and grows. And it's like, oh my God, now I have to have like 16 hands to bring all the coffee and donuts.
My favorite use case.
Yeah, so it's pretty, I like it. I haven't personally used it much in real life other than just, playing around with it, but it has a lot of potential.
The challenge I've had with Loop components, I think I'll talk to you both about it, is how to get back to the Loop component when we've created one. So let's say we create one in a Teams chat and we share some meaningful info and write a task list, let's say, and I need to get back to it 5 days from now. And getting back to it, I might remember the Teams chat. I have to scroll up to wherever it was. That I've found challenging. The Loop component is stored in a file, and the file is stored in a particular location depending on where you create it. It could be stored in the Files tab of a Teams channel. It could be stored in your OneDrive. But when I want to get back to it, I want to get back to it in context. Like if it's in a Teams chat conversation or a one-on-one chat, I want to get back to it in the context of it. And I've found that challenging.
You are correct. That's one of the things that I think it will be improved in the future. is trying to find that component inside that conversation or chat. You can definitely get to the file and click on it, and it will open up the file in a separate browser. But now you have lost the context of the chat as well.
That's right.
I would think about it in two ways, and I'm just me. First, that I think that loop components, where they would add value in how I work, is in the moment, meaning that once we're done with the loop component, I would need to create a to-do, or add it to planner, or do something else with it for me in order to organize that outcome, or create a link to it and put in a to-do if I need to follow up with it. Or I need to do something that Mike uses in his horrific inbox for Outlook every day, which is I need to remember some key terms and search for it. Key terms that are in the loop that we talked about.
Yeah, I think if you really want to keep working in that loop component, you can take that loop component, because it is a reusable file. You go and put it in a workspace, in a loop workspace, that you will have access to it. And then now you are building a use case for all those components that you are working on.
Well, now you said loop workspace, so now you have to tell people what that is.
Yeah, it's just, I guess I jumped the gun here a bit on that workspace. So workspace
you're throwing us for a loop, Mike, but keep going.
I know that's the idea. See how you can catch it in the loop. So workspace, I define workspace as OneNote on steroids. People don't probably like to say that or to hear this, but technically, where you in OneNote, you create a notebook. Inside the notebook, you have sections, and then you have pages. Similar, you go and you create a workspace, and inside that you have pages, and you can start typing, taking notes. But inside that, you can insert all those components that we're talking about. So you can build, like I say, if you are planning a workshop, or you're planning an event, or you're planning a product launch or a project launch, similar that you do in OneNote, you can all start taking notes inside it. You can share it with people. You can add links to, you can add tasks to it. You can add links to documents. You can add components. So it has a lot more features than OneNote.
Can you control within Loop Workspace who they're shared with?
Yes. So when you create a workspace, it's only yours. And that workspace, there is no place for workspace. Like when you create it, that automatically shared with others. You're going to have to go and share that workspace with other people. You can share the workspace itself. So once you share the workspace, you share the roster, the entire, everything inside that workspace. Or you can share a page inside the workspace as well. So if I share it with you, Antonio, you'll be able to actually see access that page only. Or I can go down to the component level and share that component with you.
Cool.
Can we take a look at one?
Oh, yes, let's do that.
We're daring with the live,
Yes.
live demo for us. It'll be recorded for other people, but live demo, we're going to see how Mike does. No pressure.
Okay, let's start with the components first. So today what am I today? Sometimes I don't remember. I am Alex in this demo. So here we have.
And I am Megan for this demo.
So you're going to be Megan. One thing that it's changed also, it's different than before. Before I think we demoed the loop component inside a chat. So we just do a quick recap here. I can go and start a new chat with Megan. And I can say, can you please review this task list? Right? And then I can go and click, we have this donut shape here, this is your loop component. As I click on it, and I have multiple components that can do. So I can go a voting table, task list, a paragraph, a progress tracker. Let's go with a progress tracker here. And I can call it is the morning donuts.
I like it already.
And because I have not clicked on the send yet, so Megan, Sarah here, she does not have access to it. So the minute I send it, I don't have to actually fill out any information here. it will say that it is now automatically shared with Sarah, and she can start working. She can start filling out information here. So I can say plain donut kind of thing, and I can add an owner to it. So Megan is the owner. And
I'm working on it, Mike.
Okay.
True for a live demo, my Teams client or Megan's team client decided to refresh.
Oh, there you go.
So Megan's working on it.
So I'm going to put you as in progress. You can put a start date and end date and everything else. So this is one of the examples that we can have. You can see that we have one item in progress and Megan has one item. So once Megan's team client refreshes, we should be able to start seeing some of the information coming. And I'm loving it because I'm not getting anything that I have to do myself. So it's all Sarah.
Oh,
I can keep adding.
It can't possibly stay that way.
I can add Megan also to it. There we go. And not
Believe
starting.
it or not, it's loading. Here we go. I can see morning donuts. Here we go. Not a plain donut. That's terrible.
Oh, I can see now. I can see that Megan is inside that plain donut. And I'm sure she is going to go and say, oh, this is boring. Chocolate donut. So this is your co-authoring inside your private chat. So we can keep doing and continue on, and I keep adding more components into it. Yeah, and I'm sure here we go. Oh, here we go. You get a donut, Antonio, there.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to reassign everything to Alex, and we're going to go with that. Remove myself from having responsibility.
There you go.
So now you can think.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that actually brings up a good question. Is it possible to lock fields in this?
I don't think so.
No.
So it's truly meant for everyone to co-author who has access to it. Okay.
Exactly. Now you can probably think about where are all those changes happening, because we are doing a private chat. So this is in your OneDrive. So if I go and click on the Files tab here, it will be into the Microsoft. So and click on My Files. It will be in your Teams chat files folder. When it loads, oh my, it's slow.
And it goes to, for the OneDrive, it goes to the OneDrive of the person who initiated the loop.
Correct.
So in this case,
that's a good point.
Yours.
Yeah. So I can see here, it names the component with the title that you have initiated. So to your point, Antonio, when you said that if you start chatting after, and then that component now it's above,
yeah,
you're going to have to scroll up, or you're going to have to come back here and click on it. Clicking on it, it is not going to open it back in Teams. It's going to open it in a separate window, and then we can continue editing here.
Gotcha.
Similar, if we are inside a team, if we go into sales and marketing, I can create a new component here. New conversation. And how come it's not coming? It should be here. New conversation. Unless it has not been rolled out into this tenant. It was in my tenant, but not in this. So yeah, so it's not available in all tenants, apparently, not in this demo tenant. But when it's rolled out to all tenants, you will see the donut shape component here, loop component. The difference is it will store it in your Files tab because it's a SharePoint backed site.
Okay. So it really is a question of look for that little loop, which is, I think, how we arrived at donuts, because it looks like a donut. Cinnamon roll. And clearly I translate things to food. So let's talk about some of the controls behind loop, because one of the things that I've heard from organizations is that if they are required to monitor their electronic communications, Antonio, for example, things like archival and supervision of electronic communications, which depending on the company could mean many things.
Yeah.
Some companies that includes loop components, and can
That's
your
right.
archival and supervisory tools get into those .loop files, find them where they live, and take appropriate action on them? And I know that that gets into a murky area for some organizations.
It does, and I don't. It's a good question. I think that is a concern. To be honest, I'm not sure if the content is discoverable within Loop. Is it discoverable?
It is definitely discoverable. And
within
not too long ago,
M365, within Microsoft
yes,
Defender, but depending on if you're using that versus other things, it might or might not be as easily discoverable if you're using other tools.
correct. So if you're doing like an e-discovery and you're doing a search, definitely that will show
Yes.
up. The content of the loop will show up in your e-discovery. And now you will be able to preview it also in the search results.
Yes. But it's security trimmed. So if we're having a loop, using a loop component in a chat in our team channel or in IM between the three of us, other people wouldn't be able to see it in their search results if they don't have access to that loop component to begin with. So it's security trimmed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I wanted to come back to a point that you raised earlier, Sarah, when you mentioned that loop components really are for working in the moment. It's an interesting way to look at it. Like in the compliance world, we would call that transitory information, right? Information that has low what's the word I'm looking for? That does not have
back or a low recall need.
Right, does not have long-term value, right? Information that you can delete, that you can manage yourself, that's not meant to be a corporate record, that is, again, has short-term value to the organization.
Well, and here's the key question then. Do you agree with me?
I do.
I mean, sometimes you do. Mike seldom does. But let's see. Do you agree that it's more transitory in nature?
Yes, I do. So I could look at it either way. I think the way it's built currently, yes, it's meant for more transitory short-term value, because getting back to it is hard, right? Using it in something more substantial is not trivial. Like you said, if I, let's say, create a meaningful task list for a project in Loop, because I need three of us to collaborate on this task list, I'm not going to leave it in Loop if it's a project task list for a project that's going to go a year or that's going to go even a few months. I'm going to move it to something else that is more
and maybe that's a good
recall
discussion, because sometimes on this podcast we do talk about ideas for product development, and maybe having a great way to be able to output transitory information from Loop to somewhere else, like a planner or something that is going to be more something that you can carry with you from a task perspective might be useful. What do you think, Mike?
Absolutely. And this is where we can actually transition into the workspace, because if it's transitory and we want to take it from transitory into a fixed place where we can keep it existent for a while, then we will take it to the workspace, and then you'll be able to add that component into those workspaces along with the task list and the planner and everything else.
Yeah, I think it's been designed like the way I see it designed right now. It does not look like something that's meant for long-term storage of that information, right? For something that's meant to store something that's an organizational record, something that's meant to be around for and referenced for a year.
Correct.
It looks like it's meant to be something that's referenced in the moment. So from that point of view, I agree it's transitory and it's best used in the moment. I would love to see capabilities where I can get back to the Loop components I have access to. And maybe that will be added, but that would be a nice feature to be able to, to your point, to be able to export or take a Loop components information, bring it into something else like Planner or To Do or even Excel, but also something to get back to the Loop that I've been part of easily.
Yeah, and I think also at some point, I think it is public information that you will be able to add those components into OneNote. But again, those components are transitory, and is OneNote transitory as well? That's another debate that we can have. But they're trying to extend the components into to be usable in different places.
Okay,
we
Mike,
haven't
should
talked
we
about
take a look at the
workspaces.
workspace?
Yes, we haven't talked about the workspace yet, or we haven't showed the workspace yet. So let's do another demo here. With the workspace, basically you are gonna go into loop.microsoft.com and you'll get with the out of the box getting started workspace. You will be able to go and create your own. So we can go and create our M365 voice workspace. And here I can share the workspace with anyone. So if I am Alex, I can go ahead and share that workspace automatically from Megan, or I can do it later. I don't have to do it now if I'm not ready for it. But let's go ahead and do this and then continue. And then if I want to add more keywords, anything that will define that workspace, eventually that can show up in the search, I can do that right now, but I will skip this. So here, if you can see it, it looks a little bit similar to OneNote. So you got your workspace and you got your page automatically shows as untitled. So let's say episodes for Q2. And then eventually Megan will get an email and we'll be able to go into the workspace. I can go ahead and share this workspace, like I said, with others, or I can share a page link or a loop component as well. And here I can start typing is top 10 topics, whatever that is, and I can go ahead and start adding things. If I put the / similar, like the components, I will have all the components that will be generated along with other things that I can do in the workspace. So workspace now it's a lot more. Now you are taking notes, you are planning things, you are putting things together. So you have task list, voting table, you have Q&A. You can communicate with people. So I can go and say, Megan, can you fill in this table? And I can go and add a table here. And exactly the same demo as we had before. I can go and add more references for files. I can have a planner, a Trello, a Jira. So it has a lot more capabilities. Just it's not only one component. And I can see that now Megan is inside here and she is actually editing things. Now, how do I add a component into this workspace? You remember that I have gone into this. If I am in OneDrive, so in my OneDrive here, I clicked on the morning donuts. It had opened up the component in the browser. I will be able to go ahead and click on add to workspace here. So I can click on this and I can see that the M365 voice, because I own both, I can go and add this component to the workspace. So now if I go into the episodes, I can see the morning donuts here is already in there, and I can basically update that component from anywhere. So now the actual, relationships start to establish between the component and the workspace that you can create.
Hey, Mike, and if you click on that team decision, I've already created another area. It's actually really neat what you can do in that it enables you to use templates to be able to add content quickly and easily into Loop to kind of give you a place to get started. It reminds me almost of like a super souped up version of what the wikis used to be, but so much better.
How did you add the template? How did you use the template? Can we show that?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me drag this over and I can share my screen quick and show you how I did it. 1 second.
Michael, Sarah's doing that. Those are different pages in the workspace that you're showing.
Correct.
So if I go over, for example, can you see my screen now?
Yeah,
you can.
Okay, so if I go in the M365 workspace and click on plus new page, I can, for example, say Sarah's cooking recipes, whatever we want to do. And literally I clicked on add cover, which enables you kind of like a planner plan to be able to add in different elements and add in some high level colors. You can also evidently add an icon if you wanted to. So I can do that, although I'm not entirely sure what that does. So just literally playing around with it. And then you can see that down here, I have the ability to add one of several different templates, or there is a template gallery where I can go down and choose from all kinds of other ones. So I think a great way, kind of like almost reminds me of Microsoft Word templates, the ability to come in here and add all kinds of things. So if I wanted to add, for example, a template for a retrospective, use this template, and hopefully if all of this works, yes, and you get icons and all kinds of miscellaneous content with Loop components that are built in there.
Nice.
I think this will take off pretty quick when people start to understand the power of components. I think we've seen a very slow adoption rate in the early days of OneNote. And this is happening. That's the workspaces were GA not too long ago, only a few months ago. So it has a lot of potential.
And I would say these workspaces don't seem transitory at all. I think that the Loop components, when we were talking about transitory, is more embedded within a Teams chat or within an email, unless you want to get back to that. This seems more like an ongoing collaboration with the ability to reference back easily, very much like OneNote.
Yeah,
exactly.
Agreed. This seems much more something that you would keep around and use for a longer period of time.
Very true.
Yeah. And the workspace gives you an easy place to get back to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Mike and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, what you guys showed a moment ago, Mike, you shared that workspace with Sarah, and then Sarah, when you were logged in, you could see it as well, and you could access it. So
yes,
in the workspaces, you see not only workspaces you create, but also ones that are shared with you. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, correct.
And when I went into basically M365 in my browser, and I went into the Microsoft Loop app, I could see the Loop component that Mike had previously, he and I had used from an IM perspective. I could see any Loop workspaces that I had created and any that I was invited to. So it kind of works like the Microsoft Lists app in the sense that it'll just show you all of your lists.
It's cool.
Exactly.
When you invited people, can you invite people outside of your tenant, or does everybody have to be within your tenant?
That's a good question. I don't think you can on the workspace side, because the workspace is in the storage of the workspace is in SharePoint embedded.
Right.
Let me try it right now. It's a live demo.
Okay.
No, I can't.
But at least you're not sharing your screen. So
there
we go.
I just want to make sure it works or not.
You want to try my my personal email address?
Yeah, this is from the demo tenant. I tried my personal. You can't share it with it. You can't. It does not resolve.
Got it.
But I'm pretty sure the component you can, because at the end of the day, the component is just a regular file inside of SharePoint or OneDrive.
Yep.
Fun.
Cool. Do we have anything else we want to share on Loop before we wrap this up?
I feel like we covered quite a bit in this episode. For a second episode on Loop, I feel like we dove into a lot of detail.
Yeah. I think Loop Workspaces takes it to another level, giving you a centralized place to get at Loop components, to build those pages. And the templates actually look really good. It made it look really professional, really fast.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone, today. I hope you guys learned something and enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
See ya.